Kadosh Boker or Bekiim Bahalacha 2, day 54, page 178, Halacha Kavdalid. This is Halacha 24. Okay, we're talking about now, can you do Netilat Yadayim on the ground? So basically, you're pouring the water. Can you do the on the ground or not? We're talking about Netilat Yadayim of Shachrit, obviously, in the morning. Okay? So he says, number 24. When performing the mitzvah of the morning Netilat Yadayim, one must not pour the water over one's hands that it spills on the ground or even on wood chips. This is because the harmful forces that are dispelled from one's hands would infect the surface upon which the water falls. Instead, you have to pour it on the hands so that it will spill into a receptacle, into another utensil. If someone ignored this rule and performed the mitzvah over the ground, he nevertheless successfully dispelled the harmful forces, but it's now wherever it is. You know what I mean? It's not good. You should do it in a receptacle. So let's see number 174. Maran the Bet Yosef cited in the footnote. Maran the Bet Yosef cited the Holy Zohar Kadosh that its source is this halakha. Shimon Yochai taught that when someone sleeps at night, he tastes the flavor of death, and and he says, and an impure spirit invades his body. By performing Netilat Yadayim in the morning, right, he sanctifies and purifies his body from contamination. The proper procedure is to place the container beneath the hands to catch the water being spilled, right, then to pour the water from above with another container. The purpose of the receptacle, right, he says, is the hands to catch impurity while the container of the water above brings sanctity to the person. The contaminated water must not be spilled in the house where someone might touch it. For if someone touches it, again, he could become injured from this impure water. Okay, what about now contrasting with my macharonim? So regarding the water used for my machronim, Maran rules Shulchan Aruch that it may be poured onto the wood chips that cover the ground. Regarding the morning Netilat Yadayim, Magen Avraham ruled that it's forbidden to pour water onto wood chips. Machatzita Shekel explained that the water used for my machronim is not infected by harmful forces until it touches the ground. If wood chips are covered the ground, and the water on the wood chips never become infected with any harmful forces. The water used for Netilat Yadayim, morning Netilat Yadayim, however, is already infected, right, as soon as it is used. Therefore, even if it was poured onto wood chips, the water and the chips become contaminated, and it might harm people who walk on it. So basically, again, that's the difference between Netilat Yadayim of Suda and Netilat Yadayim of Shachrit. Okay, there's going to be a difference. What about now a sink? Because at the end of the day, the sink is not the floor. It's not wooden chips. It's a sink. So he says like this: it's permissible to perform Halacha 25. It's permissible to perform Netilat Yadayim directly into a kitchen sink, so the water will run down the drain. Even though the Shulchan Aruch is forbidden to pour it onto the ground, and the sink is permanently attached to the wall, considered part of the ground, it's permissible since the water runs immediately into the drain, right, into the sewage system, where no one has physical access. Therefore, we don't have to be concerned about the harmful forces that have infected the water used for the mitzvah. Nevertheless, it is recommended to rinse the sink before using it to wash dishes or to clean fruits. Meaning, even after you use the sink for this, rinse it out, and then you could use it for, whatever it is, dishes or whatever, or fruits or everything. The halakha is identical regarding the mitzvah of machronim. It's forbidden to perform the mitzvah over the ground, since harmful forces contaminate the water used for the mitzvah, as explained in Chulin in the Shulchan Aruch. See that you said, right, Berachot, English edition. Fine. There's nothing there. Okay. Halakha 26. One should avoid performing Netilat Yadayim while pouring water onto the utensils in the sink, since the water is infected with harmful forces that are removed from the hands, and therefore if someone did perform Netilat Yadayim with utensils in the sink, you should rinse it out well before they're used again. Right? 175. That means basically don't do Netilat Yadayim on top of things which are in the sink. Empty the sink and then you do the Netilat Yadayim. So Yalkut Yosef, he says that one must perform Netilat Yadayim he must not perform onto utensils in the sink, since the water is infected with harmful forces. If someone did this, he has to be rinsed off before they are used. This seems to contradict Maran's instructions to perform Netilat Yadayim into a bowl or some other container. Apparently, it's permissible to pour the water onto utensil. It must be, therefore, that the issue is not the utensil becomes contaminated. It is only that the water onto it becomes contaminated. If someone would wish to use a bowl in which to pour Netilat Yadayim, he would likewise have to rinse it out to contaminated water. The utensils themselves will not become infected, as explained in the Oziel Tzevchai, that no utensils become infected with these harmful forces. It is only the water which is in the utensils that they become infected. So he says, likewise, when the Mishabura explains that one must pour the water of Netilat Yadayim onto wood chips, he comes and he says, right, he says like this, he says, because harmful forces infect them, the word them referred to the water and not to the chips. Right? One down. Jackie. Yeah, right there. Down. Okay? Next halakha, 127. It is not always necessary to perform this mitzvah over a receptacle. It may be performed over the ground if it is on a steep slope where people do not walk, or over sandy soil where the water is absorbed immediately. It is also permissible to perform the mitzvah over a lake or a river. So 176. He explained, right, there's the Kav HaChaim. So the Kav HaChaim is going to explain, right, that the reason for the Zohar's teaching is that it's necessary to pour the water over a receptacle is to ensure that the people will not touch the infected water and become injured. It is permissible, therefore, to pour on the ground, which is going to be a slope, people don't frequent there, or into a pit, or it says this is the ruling of the Tzayar, or it's going to be into a lake or a river. For the same reason, when someone uses a receptacle, he may not empty it, he may then empty it into one of these places, as explained below in Halakha 29. Okay? Fine. Halakha 28. It is forbidden to have any benefit from the water used for the mitzvah of Netilat Yadayim in the morning. So you can't benefit from it. One may not use it to rinse something clean, to feed it to one's animals, right? Or to plants. If someone would use the water in such a manner, the harmful forces would infect the object or the animal that came into contact with the water. Okay, Halakha 29. It is forbidden to spill the water used for morning Netilat Yadayim on the floor of one's home or anywhere where people frequent, since harmful forces infecting the water is liable to injure them. For the same reason, the used water should not be kept overnight in the home. The water should be spilled out over a steep slope or a sandy soil or a sink or into a river, as explained above in Halakha 25 and 27, page number 177 on the footnote. As explained above in footnote 24, he says the source of the halakha is the Zohar HaKadosh. Chassid Alafim complained that some inconsiderate people spill this water each morning on the ground outside their front door. So he says passerbys are likely to become injured. So he comes and he says, so what are they doing then? You understand? Because if they're, people are going to become injured, what's going on? It's not proper. Okay? 30. He comes and he says like this, halakha 30. If water used for Netilat Yadayim was spilled onto the ground, someone should pour more water onto it to nullify its effect. Meaning, if somebody already poured it on the floor, pour more water, right? So he says, if it is spilled on a tiled or paved floor, it may be mopped up with a rag. Okay, so 178. So 178 says, this is ruling the Ben Ish Chai, cited by the Kav HaChaim. How much water do you have to pour on the floor? So he says, Ben Ish Chai gave instructions to pour a lot of water onto the infected water without specifying how much is needed. Yakuza pointed out the Shulchan Aruch ruled that if someone pours a revi'it of water onto urine, it nullifies the halachic status of urine. So he wants to say the same thing, meaning just like by urine, a revi'it, 86, dilutes it, and now it's not considered urine. So the same halakha should apply here. A revi'it, and that's it. He suggested that perhaps more is needed to nullify. He says, no, but maybe you need more, but this is harmful forces. There's not just some urine to nullify urine. That Shalom dealt with this issue in response to Abi Omer, citing Rav Labaton, who ruled that the revi'it of water is sufficient to nullify the harmful, just as nullified to the status of urine. Harav Avraham Hamway, however, right? He comes and he says, right? He comes and he says like this. However, the Rav Chida, right? He says, ruled that water used for Netilat Yadayim has a more stringent status in urine, and a revi'it of water is insufficient. That he then cited a string of achronim, right? The Ruach Chaim Falache, Pekud Al-Azar, Eshel Avraham, they all were lenient that a revi'it is enough, right? On the other hand, the response of Yaskil Avdi ruled that one must pour an amount of water that exceeds the amount of Netilat Yadayim. From the tone of his writing, it appears that the Ran Shalom Tzion ruled in favor of the lenient opinion. The revi'it is enough, and so he says, if someone follows the stringent opinion and pours, right, plenty of water, he's going to get a special blessing. Okay? So he says, the 179, right, harmful forces in rags. So once if it's on a tile thing, you could just mop it up. So he says, the Yalkut Yosef did not explain why mopping up the water is a solution. If there are harmful forces infecting the water, the rag used to wipe up the water should also become contaminated. Although Yosef Chai taught that these forces do not contaminate people or food, not any utensil, this means only that the rag is not infected, but the water absorbed in the rag is infected. A possible way to reconcile this is to compare the handle, right, to the handle of the container used to pour the water on one's hands for Netilat Yadayim. Yosef Chai explained that the harmful forces will not rest on the water on the cups handles, since the water is barely visible. These harmful forces are haughty and will not only infect people, like big things. In the same way, the harmful forces will not remain on the water absorbed in the rag, since it did not meet their high standards. Meaning that it's so low, nothing's going to happen. So they're not going to come, right? And they're not going to do anything, right, for this.